Greetings, NFL fans. Today is Tuesday, November 25th. It is Thanksgiving week here on the Shutdown Corner. I am Kevin Kaduk here with Frank Schwab and Jay Busbee. This is the only podcast you get from us this week. Yes, we are not going to be here on Black Friday, but we're going to go a little long today, previewing Week 13 games, talking about a great slate that we have ahead of us. I can't really think of a better Thanksgiving set of games that we've ever had. We'll get more into that, but let's talk a little bit about Week 12 and the week that was. So many different things happened. Odell Beckham, Packers and Patriots looking great, Broncos escaping. The one thing I wanted to talk to right off the bat, though, is Marshawn Lynch's press conference, which actually got a lot of clicks and hits and video views on the Shutdown Corner. He said yes 12 times to avoid a $100,000 fine, and it's sparked any number of opinions on Marshawn Lynch. Jay, I want to know where you fall. Is Marshawn Lynch a jerk? Is he fine? Where do you fall on this?
Yeah.
I walked right.
You set me up for that one, man. That was not intentional. You set me up for that. Yeah, I mean, I think that he has an obligation to speak. He does not have an obligation to go forth and give. He doesn't have an obligation to do our jobs for us. And I think that's why a lot of media people get upset, is because they will ask the infamous question, talk about the game, talk about what you were feeling. And it's not even a question, really. It's basically, do my job for me. So when the athlete doesn't do that, they get upset. I do think Marshawn Lynch has an obligation to present himself to the media in some form or fashion, because of the fact that the media has been so instrumental in growing the NFL and continues to be so. I don't think he has to do his job for us, however.
I think it's, and this goes back to the Super Bowl. I mean, I was around him during the Super Bowl. He didn't want to talk. And the Seahawks all just said, hey, look, he's not being a jerk. He's just a really quiet guy who hates this. And I could get that, I guess. And so why would he have to talk? And what good does his post-game interview do for anybody with one-word answers and all that? And it's kind of weird and it's uncomfortable for everybody. But yet at the same time, it's in their contract. It is. It's written in their contract. You must cooperate with the media. You must meet with them once a week and after games. And there's stuff about my job I don't like, and I do it. Like this podcast. No, I'm just kidding. But I think that there is an obligation. There's an obligation to at least do that part of your job that you don't like, and it's not just the media, it's the public. I mean, we're all at a job where we know how much the public loves the NFL, and we provide that information for them every single day, including holidays, as this week proves. And how do they get that? Well, they get their information on the players through us. So it's about getting it out to the public. It's about building the sport into the behemoth billion-dollar industry it's become, and they've made a lot of money off of that. So I do think there is some obligation, but it's also a weird cat and mouse game when Marshawn Lynch just doesn't want to do it.
See, but the thing is, yeah, I understand. I've been there before. I've been sitting in front of a locker where no one comes out or someone is short, and it sucks. I truly get that as a journalist. So, why should Marshawn Lynch have to go out there if he doesn't want to do it? I'm actually going to direct our listeners to a column written by Ed Sherman on sportsjournalism.org, and it's actually one of the most condescending and entitled things I've ever read. And it starts off with the sentence, Marshawn Lynch is fairly clueless. So the meaning of this story probably will be lost on him. You think he's really fairly clueless? I just think that's unfair. I think that Marshawn Lynch does a terrible job of presenting himself. I think he does a terrible job of handling it. I think he doesn't look good when he sits there and says that. Yeah, it's probably entertaining, and for people who really hate media, I mean, people probably get off on that. So great for that. Great for them. But at the same time, so Ed Sherman goes into this, and he's making this argument, well, George Halas used to walk into the office of the Tribune and hand out free tickets and sell the league. And if it wasn't for the Chicago Tribune, the NFL wouldn't be where it is today. Then he goes on longer and starts talking about, well, the Chicago Blackhawks. Look at how they approach the media. And John McDonough and blah, blah, blah. I love the Chicago Blackhawks. There's probably not much on this planet that I love more than the Chicago Blackhawks. But I could honestly care if Jonathan Toews or Patrick Kane talked to the media. It doesn't matter to me. What matters to me is that Jonathan Toews and Patrick Kane win Stanley Cups. And what matters to Seahawks fans is that Marshawn Lynch brings the Seahawks to another Super Bowl title. Marshawn Lynch shouldn't be paid anything more than to run the football. And I really, truly believe that. He is not a guy that needs to go out there and be a huckster for the NFL. The NFL sells itself. We've seen that all this year. It doesn't matter what Adrian Peterson does. It doesn't matter what Ray Rice does. Why should it matter if Marshawn Lynch comes out and spouts off 10 cliches and then calls it a day? It shouldn't.
But wouldn't that? I mean, do you think? Let's say that we enacted the Marshawn Lynch rule and he didn't have to talk, and then no players talked. Which is possible. I mean, if there was no rule in place, I'm sure a team like the Patriots would say, okay, we're never going to talk to you. Wouldn't that hurt the popularity of the NFL, you think? I mean, a lot of the popularity of the NFL is that it's in the news 365 days a year. It is. It's constantly in the news. Yeah. Don't you think that if nobody in the league ever talked that would suffer? Because there wouldn't be anything to write about.
That was my
Monday to Saturday.
Point. It's easy to say this when Lynch is on top of the world and the Seahawks and the NFL are on top of the world, but there's a reason why. With all of the other smaller leagues will be begging for coverage. I mean, we've all had the options and the opportunities to be flown out to places to cover various small events, and obviously that's a little bit of a violation of journalistic principles to go and get flown out somewhere to cover an event, but it happens all the time. The NFL doesn't need to do that, and they don't need to right now. But I'm with Frank. I think that it's because the NFL is so popular right now because we have this personal connection to these players.
How many NFL players do you think would take advantage of hey, I don't need to talk? Think it'd be all of them?
No, I don't. I think some players enjoy they don't mind it, and they understand that it markets themselves, and that means opportunities for them outside of football as far as making money. And it's just business. It's part of their brand. I mean, it's we joke about that a lot with Twitter, but it is literally part of their brand that Aaron Rodgers talking to Lori Nickel of the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel last week about his healthy lifestyle and blah, blah, blah. And it's a really engaging story, and we wrote about it. And does that help? The fact that he's an engaging, personable kind of guy, does that help him get ads with State Farm? Probably. Yeah. Is it State Farm? Right? It is State Farm.
Discount double check,
but I think it'd probably be half and half. If I had to guess, I would say half of the players could care less and are never going to talk, and then half of the guys do it just kind of to be polite and or because they think it's good for themselves.
Well, and there are some that genuinely enjoy it, I think. I mean, in terms of when things are going well, at least. But, there are plenty who would definitely take advantage of it in order to increase their own visibility and increase their own hashtag brand.
Yeah.
And we
all know that there's opportunities. Go ahead.
And let me tell you this, and I think we've all experienced this. Players who don't like talking to media during their playing career, if you call them up 2 years after retirement, they will talk your ear off for 2 hours because they miss it so much. That is the truth. Former players talking to the media is unbelievable. It is. They love it. They enjoy it.
And how many people who profess to hate the media in their playing career are sitting behind a camera right now, right? Deion Sanders, Ray Lewis.
I think it's the whole NFL Network crew. Yeah, I think literally anybody who is employed by the NFL Network at this point.
Which brings up a point. Is it the act of talking to the media, or is it the way that the media interprets their words that they have a problem with? They go and they say something wrong, or they say something slightly offline.
I think the RG3 thing is a great example of that, because what Griffin said after the game last Sunday was he did kind of criticize his teammates, but it got taken way out of context. It did. If you look at the full statement, what he said, he basically said, my teammates are good, I'm not good, nobody's good. And okay, he could have left the teammates part out, but he wasn't saying, I'm playing great, my teammates stink. And that's kind of how it came off. And that just and then he comes out on Wednesday and just says, focus on San Francisco 11 times. So, sometimes it does get taken out of context. I hate when that happens. I'm not a big fan of that either, so I understand where these guys' frustration comes from.
So, I mean, that's why a point I wanted to bring up is, obviously, access does allow for better stories to be written. If you go into the locker room on Sunday and you wait for the crowd of TV cameras to dissipate, sometimes you get a guy one-on-one and he'll give you a point that will make a great detail on your story, and maybe talk about coverage, something he was seeing, something that fans didn't see at home. So I understand that side of it. On the other part of it, Frank, you're a writer who more often than not spends Sundays writing at home. You don't have direct access to these guys, right? And you're one of my favorite football writers to read because I just think that you present the
I know where you're going with
your information, your analysis, blah blah blah. You don't need that, right? And here's my other point: how much of what actual passes as news in the NFL actually comes from players and not front office sources or agent sources? Do you think it's a lot?
I think that the amount of news that comes from players is probably 20%, maybe, and that's some players play the game as well as agents. Let's put it that way. They know how to play the media. They know how to text just as well as agents do. But that's the thing. And I argued this even when I was on a beat, doing the beat, that a lot of times, and this is way inside baseball, and I hope we're not getting boring, but a lot of things that are written when you do have access you are writing this because you want to impress a source. I mean, I've read things where it's obvious the guy wrote it because they want the source to call them back next week. And it's just true that this stuff happens sometimes. But when you don't have access to these players, you're not beholden to them talking to you. You write sometimes more honestly. If somebody writes Andrew Luck's a great player, and they don't have access to Andrew Luck, it's because they think Andrew Luck's a great player. They've watched the games, they've watched the film, and they think Andrew Luck is great, not because they want Andrew Luck to give him a pat on the back in the locker room tomorrow. So in some ways, it's almost better to write about the NFL honestly when you have no access to these guys, as crazy as that sounds, because you're not trying to buddy up to them so you can get info from them later.
Yeah, that's kind of the question. The question we wrestle with in terms of a good story versus good delivery of information. I mean, one of the best stories that Yahoo's published in a long, long time was Dan Wetzel's story after the Super Bowl, where he basically watched Tom Brady try to reconcile losing another Super Bowl, and he stood there, and that's not something that he could have gotten from a television. Right. He stood there and watched him for 2 hours or however long it was. It was a great story. But how many fans are going to necessarily be fine without that? I mean, unfortunately, I think for our profession, a good number of fans were fine with not knowing that.
But it's also there's also the soap opera aspect.
That said, like you look at Marshawn Lynch and you see the way that he handles this. This tells us part of the Marshawn Lynch story, doesn't it?
This is true.
Yeah, so. And there's also there's also the soap opera aspect. This is a male soap opera. Let's be honest. A lot of it we like. Not just the games, but we like to know who these players are. We like to root against Richard Sherman because of what he says. Like a lot of people hate Richard Sherman and tune in on Sundays to watch Richard Sherman get beat for a touchdown because of what they've heard Richard Sherman say. So I don't know. It's a very complicated issue, to say the least.
So divided. We're journalists, we're fans, we're all everything.
We're biased. We're all of us biased.
Yeah. With Marshawn,
everyone's biased. I hate
I will write a doctor's note for Marshawn Lynch. Let's just exclude him from interviews from here on out. We don't need it.
Again, at the Super Bowl last year, I felt the whole situation was uncomfortable. I understand journalistically. I understand why the Pro Football Writers Association wanted him to talk. I understand why the NFL had to put him at the table for a while. But it was so weird and uncomfortable. It's like, this guy doesn't want to do this. Why are we doing this? Who's getting anything out of this?
Well, I'll tell you who's getting something out of it. It's the NFL. I mean, we take the journalism side out of it, the media side out of it. What is this doing? This is the NFL controlling the behavior of its players and reminding them who's in control. And that's always looming behind the curtain.
Yeah. All right. Let's move on and talk a little bit more about Week 12 before we move on to Thanksgiving, Week 13. And obviously, I think the biggest story coming out of it was Odell Beckham. I think people who had no really big interest in football said, hey, did you see that catch? I think Odell Beckham became a household name with that catch. It was incredible.
I mean, that was just physically, not situationally or anything, because I wrote a long post about this yesterday, comparing it to the great catches, and I picked a helmet catch as the greatest. But just taking the situation out of it, taking the importance out of it, it's the best physical catch I've ever seen. I mean, it was. My daughter and wife were in the living room with me when I was watching the game, working on winners and losers, and I yelled out loud when I saw it. They were like, "What the hell's going on?" I just couldn't believe what I saw.
I was in.
So did they come into the room and watch?
They were already in there. I was watching in the living room with them, so they were already there. And yeah, my wife watched it, the replays, and was just as impressed as I was.
Yeah, I was at a sports bar with a bunch of moribund Falcons fans, and even they got lit up by that, seeing that happen, because it's the kind of thing that you can imagine it, but you never see it played out that perfectly, where it's one hand, 3 fingers, pulls it in. There's no doubt whatsoever. He doesn't roll over on the ball and maybe it got out, maybe the ground helped him. There's no doubt whatsoever. He lands completely in bounds. It was a flawless catch.
There's very few plays that are like physically impossible. Like you watch the replay and you're like, how did that man do that? Like it looks literally physically impossible. That was one of them.
Yeah, I think the underrated part of that play is him just staying in bounds from like the 10-yard line in, staying in bounds, and then getting interfered with, and then being in that position to make the catch was crazy. I don't know if you saw this thing on For the Win, though, the USA Today kind of viral site. They actually went out and bought a pair of the gloves and
oh, really?
Caught balls with them, and they're just regular kind of bloggers, run-of-the-mill bloggers, whatever, not very athletic, Sorry For the Win, but just average.
Jeez, we're gonna start a blogger war here.
We need to have a showdown.
But they had someone toss them a ball and try to catch it with one hand without it, and like no one was able to do it. And I don't know if they were hamming it up and kind of hamming up their fumbleness for it. But then they put on the glove and were able to catch it very easily. Now that said, Beckham still caught it with like 3 fingers, so I don't know how much.
Well, those gloves. Have you ever tried those gloves on?
No.
They're very tacky. You could tell. I mean, it makes a difference. I'm not saying you're cheating or anything, but I mean, they're made very well. Let's put it that way.
So there was a kind of initial backlash to hey, this is the greatest catch of all time, and there was a bunch of people saying there's no way this can be the greatest catch of all time. And so I said, okay, well, maybe our memories are not that long, but Frank, you went through it in a great post yesterday. And we probably brainstormed 10 or 15 different catches, and you went through.
Uh-huh.
It stood up at every catch, and I think the only one you said was better was David Tyree.
And that's just because it won a Super Bowl. I mean, if David Tyree's catch happens in Week 5, I don't know if any of us really remember it, to be honest with you. I mean, it's just one of those. That catch was great because it was a really tough catch, and it was in the final 2 minutes of a Super Bowl, but. Just straight up. I mean, like Jason Avant is a great example. Jason Avant, when he was with the Eagles, and it's in that post, made a great one-handed catch. He's like falling backwards, reaches behind him, makes a one-handed catch, but there wasn't a cornerback pass interfering him on the play. You just add these levels of difficulty to Beckham's catch, and it's just it astounds me. I could watch that play just on a loop, and I still wouldn't get sick of watching it, just because every time I see it, I kind of just marvel at just how did he do this?
Yeah. So do you put if you're drafting from the pool of rookie wide receivers, is it Odell Beckham the number 1 no doubt pick, or are you having problems with Mike Evans and Sammy Watkins?
Who
would you take?
There's a lot of good receivers. I mean, this is we're getting to the point where we need to start talking about, is the 2014 rookie receiver class better than the 83 quarterback class or the blank defensive tackle class or whatever. This might be the best class for any position ever. I mean, Kelvin Benjamin, great player. Brandon Cooks, all these guys, Allen Robinson for the Jaguars never gets talked about. He had a pretty good year before he got hurt. Brandon Cooks, another guy. I mean, we could go on and on. There's about 15 guys who you just know, okay, they're good NFL receivers. They're going to be good for 8, 9, 10 years.
Yeah, that's the question is the long-term productivity of these guys. It's not like running backs where you've got guys that will tap out by the time we hit the 2017 season.
So honestly, at this point, I might take Mike Evans. He has been unbelievable. I love Beckham too. I think he's a great player. Don't get me wrong. If you took Beckham over Mike Evans or Sammy Watkins, I couldn't argue too much with you. Sammy Watkins is really good too. He just doesn't have a quarterback. I mean, those 3 guys are. You could pick any one of them and not be wrong.
Watching what Mike Evans has done with his quarterbacks, he doesn't have a quarterback either.
That's true.
I love his size. I love his field presence. The number of catches he's made, the separation he gets already. I mean, the catch that he made against the Bears on Sunday was great. I think I'd take Mike Evans overall, the first overall too.
But this
we were talking about when you did that post. It's kind of crazy that Jerry Rice doesn't have the signature catch, really.
It really
There's not
is.
one. But when you think about it, he has so
one
many signature games where it was like, man, it just went off and 297 yards. I almost feel like Mike Evans is that Jerry Rice mold, right? Like he's just going to make catch after catch after catch.
You know, Rice, as you mentioned it again, and we talked about this, but now he made a catch against the Rams, cornerback draped on his left arm, and he just sticks out his right hand and catches it down the sideline. Now I remember, but yeah, Jerry Rice is he's just a mechanic. He just went out every single day and just made every single catch he could make and made it look easy. That's the greatness of Jerry Rice. And Mike Evans, yeah, he's probably the same. I mean, the play he made against the Bears the other day was phenomenal. He's just great. This rookie receiver class is exciting.
But here's the thing that, as we've talked about with Calvin Johnson, a receiver is literally only as good as his quarterback has a ceiling on him. Yeah. Which of these guys do you think in the next 3 years, during the course of their rookie contract, is going to benefit the most? It's going to be Cooks, isn't it? It has to be.
Well, Devontae Adams with the Packers. I mean, if he gets enough playing time, and he's looked really good too. And I mean, I got Aaron Rodgers throwing it a ball. You know, I mean, if Cody Latimer, the Broncos, gets his shot when Manning is still there, that obviously helps him a little bit. Dante Moncrief with the Colts is another guy who I think he put up 100-some against the Pittsburgh Steelers when I think Hakeem Nicks was out or Reggie Wayne was out. And he's a guy, Dante Moncrief has got to be just like, wow, I can't believe my luck in life that I ended up with Andrew Luck. You know, I mean, he hit the jackpot. He is a rookie receiver, I think 4th-round pick. He slipped a little bit. The Colts drafted him. And this guy's going to have a great career because he's got the great Andrew Luck throwing him the ball.
Yeah. It's crazy that we're heading into an era where wide receivers are going to be bigger stars than the running backs, if we're not there already.
It's a weird for us, us especially, us three, who grew up in the Eric Dickerson, Walter Payton, Emmitt Smith, Barry Sanders era, to now that running backs are just
disposable.
Yeah, whatever. You know, yeah, they really are. It's like, okay, this week it's Isaiah Crowell, next week it's going to be Terrence West, and next week they'll have somebody else, and Jonas Correa will go for 4 touchdowns this week and not even play the next week. Yeah, it's a little weird.
Yeah.
Like Melvin Gordon, we're not just doing this because we're Wisconsin grads, but Melvin Gordon is going to be a big deal next April when the draft comes. He might win a Heisman. He's a phenomenal running back, as good as I've seen in college, outside of like Barry Sanders and Adrian Peterson. He might not go in the first round.
If he goes to that combine and it can't demonstrate that he can pass block or catch the ball, something that he really hasn't been counted upon to do it at Wisconsin, of course he's not going to go in the first round. And he might not be an NFL star because of it.
And here in Georgia, people are still wearing black armbands because of Todd Gurley. I mean, he probably injured himself out of the first round. He was such a phenomenal talent. Obviously, he had the NCAA issues that kept him out. Gets injured in his first game back. Why, as an NFL team, are you going to take a chance on a guy who has had a knee injury and could be a potential problem going forward when there are so many other options available at running back?
And especially when you look at it this way and you think, I could have Melvin Gordon in the first round or Todd Gurley or whoever. I could have them in the first round, or I could have an Isaiah Crowell undrafted. Well, okay, well, I'll probably take an Isaiah Crowell. And these guys, I hate to say they just grow on trees, but they kind of do almost, it seems, just because, I mean, there's so many stories of guys being drafted late, being drafted undrafted, and they're just fine. You plug them and play them. Their career expectancy is 3-4 years. You get what you can out of them, and you move on to the next guy. And that sounds really, really bad, but it's true. I mean, let's be honest about the business now.
Eric Edholm had a good post in the wake of like the LeGarrette Blount release and the Ben Tate release, and saying, here are these guys who got a lot of money in free agency, and I forgot who's the big running back coming up for a big deal, but he's probably looking at this and seeing Tate flop, seeing Blount flop in Pittsburgh, although he did well with the Patriots this past weekend. But who's the big running back?
DeMarco Murray. DeMarco Murray's a free agent.
He's got to be looking at that and just saying crap.
Yeah, like why, if you're the Cowboys, would you rather spend $50 million on DeMarco Murray or spend $1 million on Joseph Randall? Well, you probably spend $1 million on Joseph Randall. As great as DeMarco Murray is, don't get me wrong, I really like him. At some point, it's just bad to invest in running backs, and it's a vicious cycle because, God, if you're a great athlete right now and you're 16 years old, you're a sophomore in high school, and they give you a shot to play running back, you might be like, can I play receiver? Is that okay? I got the skill set for that too. You know? I mean, it's going to happen a lot.
Yeah, of course, the sinister tinge to the Dallas Cowboys angle is that Jerry Jones is absolutely running Murray to the ground and then will not bring him back because he's gotten all he can get out of him.
And I wonder, here's the question, too, and I complain about this with college coaches because I think it's a little bit different, but do the Dallas Cowboys have any obligation to not run Murray into the ground? Let's say they wanted to give the ball to DeMarco Murray 40 times because it makes them a better football team. They can win the NFC East. They give the ball to DeMarco Murray 200 times the rest of the year. Is there any obligation for them not to do that?
It's a lot less ethically gray to do that in an NFL situation than a college situation, without a doubt.
He's getting paid. Marco Murray's getting paid for that job. I mean, I when I see Todd Gurley getting 38 carries or whatever, it's like, ugh, that's I don't really enjoy that. But in the NFL, is there any obligation? The Cowboys maybe should run him out of into the ground. It's like when CeCe Sabathia went to the Brewers, and the Brewers knew they had him for 2 months, and they pitched him every single inning they could. Well, that's life. That you're getting paid to go out there. Go
Didn't bring you here to cheerlead, son.
Yeah. All right, let's move on. We're going to do Week 13 picks, talk about the Thanksgiving games. Before then, I think we should do a lightning round, and I want to do a twist. I think we should have Frank ask Jay and I questions for 3 minutes, and I think they should entirely be Thanksgiving related. Does that sound fun?
Bring it.
If I could come up with 3 minutes worth.
Well, then now you're on the other side of the table. You can see how hard it is to come up with question after question.
You guys don't prepare?
No.
I'm sorry, what?
What are you guys doing?
Or do you just want to? Do we want to put one person on the hot seat to ask Thanksgiving questions?
I'll ask you guys Thanksgiving questions. I'll go until I'm done with them. And
okay,
Kevin, what is the best part of the Thanksgiving meal?
Okay, well, hold on. Let's start. We'll alternate. So I'll take one, then Jay takes one.
Yep. That's why I gave you the first one.
All right, we're starting. Best part of the Thanksgiving meal, yes, I would say, is a sweet potato casserole. Mashed up sweet potatoes. You got the pecans on there. That is the best. I could eat an entire tub of that. Sign me up.
That's the wrong answer. Jay, do you have anything weird in your stuffing? A lot of people make stuffing different ways. Anything strange in the stuffing that you like?
That's an excellent question. Yes, we make it with a little bit of sausage. A little bit of sausage in there gives it an extra tinge. You mix it up with the turkey, and you get it into a meat coma early, and it's good stuff.
How many vegetarians in the Busbee household?
Yeah, no kidding.
Seriously, you put they stuff sausage and stuff. Kevin, white meat or dark meat on the turkey?
Oh, white meat. I don't like dark meat. Too slimy. White meat all the way. Douse that stuff with gravy. Eat it with the stuffing. White meat. 100 times out of 100.
All right, Jay, when do you have Thanksgiving dinner? Because everybody does different. Some people do it noon, 5. Well, when is eating time in the Busbee?
Yeah, that's a good one. We do it at 5 o'clock. Right around between 4:30 and 5. That gives you time to go out and play during the day. Get a little bit of. I know some folks do the run to go and work off the turkey. We play a little football, run a few patterns, what have you. Everybody's going to try the Odell Beckham catch this year, I'm sure. And if anyone is not injured, we'll eat around 5 o'clock. That gives us time to run away, avoid doing the dishes, and be in front of the game at 8:30.
Kevin, have you ever watched the dog show?
I have never watched a dog show. I have no idea what you're talking about. I am all about the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade, so much that I would love to go to New York one Thanksgiving and actually see the parade in person. I love the big balloons, the Snoopy, Clifford the Big Red Dog. Macy's Day Parade. What is the dog show?
It's a Westminster Dog Show. Jay, do you know about the dog show?
I know about it, but I'm with Kevin. I go with the parade every time.
My wife she goes nuts if she can't watch a dog show on Thanksgiving. It's terrible. So at what point, Kevin, does the tryptophan kick in and you start to sleep? Which game? Let's put it by NFL game.
Oh, definitely during the Cowboys game. We actually time it off pretty well where we're eating between the two games or I don't know how much time is in between, but it doesn't seem like we missed too much. Obviously, we're going to be pretty plugged into the Bears game, Bears and Lions. Probably Big Bears upset victory in Detroit for their 75th anniversary. The Lions will celebrate it right, but yeah, I fall asleep during the Cowboys game.
Yeah, pretty much standard. Jay, best NFL Thanksgiving memory?
It was what was the Cowboys won in the snow with the Dolphins with Leon Lett? That's got to be it, right?
Yeah, I can't. Kevin, do you have a better Thanksgiving memory than Leon Lett? Because it's almost like
I think it's Jason Garrett filling in for an injured Troy Aikman in 1994. It's the 20th anniversary, and we'll have a Throwback Thursday post on it on Shutdown Corner tomorrow.
Look at that.
It's going to cost me a lot.
Huh?
It's going to cost me a lot of pain to write that one too. Let's put it that way. It came against the Packers in '94. That was a solid light.
We're up. We made it. 3 minutes. That was a long time. It usually seems fast on the other end, but
I didn't know you guys didn't prepare for that. I got a whole new respect for you guys I didn't have before.
I have the scoreboard in front of me, and I run across the scoreboard and figure out something from each game to ask as we're going.
That's solid. That's kind of how I do power rankings.
let's move on really quick to our Week 13 picks before we send you into the Thanksgiving weekend on your own lonesome selves. Great Thursday schedule. Bears at Lions, Eagles at Cowboys, topped off by Seahawks and Niners at night.
This is the best Thanksgiving schedule ever.
I would agree. Without
it's not even close.
I'm wondering if this is the first time that it's been all NFC teams and no AFC teams. That's kind of weird, right?
It is, actually, because they changed the rule. I mean, for so long, we were stuck with the interdivisional games because CBS has a game, Fox has a game, and it's the road team, whoever the road team is. If the road team is the AFC, it goes on CBS. So you had to have one of the games be with the AFC, but they changed the rules this year. So you can have basically an NFC game on CBS, which is going to happen, it's never happened before.
Right. So we actually don't penalize these for being Thursday games because they're Thanksgiving games, but they actually do present the same amount of challenges, right?
They do.
The short work week, and actually probably more because these players are distracted by probably family in town and all that other stuff.
Not only that, Bears and Lions are losing another 8 to 12 hours off of their preparation day. They don't even get that Thursday.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
It's tough, but usually we end up seeing decent efforts on Thursday, so on Thanksgiving Thursday. So, but this is a great Thanksgiving slate, incredible.
Let's do some picks here. You thinking home teams across the board, or does the Seahawks rise up and win that game in San Francisco? What are we thinking?
I like the Eagles and the Seahawks, to be honest with you. I think the Eagles are just a better team than the Cowboys. I think that. It's going to be tough to win at Dallas, especially on a short week. But I think the Eagles get it done because look, the Eagles are pretty tough to prepare for on a short week too. And I just haven't seen it from the Niners this year all year. Even when they win, they're not impressive. Like they should have lost to the Redskins on Sunday. Really. So I'm going Seahawks. I'm going Eagles, and obviously you almost have to pick the Lions, even though they're playing so bad right now that anything can happen.
Yeah, I picked the Eagles as my upset of the week anyway, even though the Cowboys are favored by 3, but that's basically just the home field advantage, such as it is at the Jerry Dome. And, I'll ride with that.
Okay. I am going with the Bears because I am sticking with my prediction that they will win the 5 games before blowing up a shot at the playoffs at Minnesota with that. So even though the Bears did look terrible for most of the game against the Buccaneers, I'm just going to ride with that because why the hell not?
Good man.
I like the Cowboys. I think Tony Romo's been playing well. I think that that national audience, I think the Cowboys get it done at home. And I agree with you. I think the Seahawks get it done at the 49ers because the 49ers just have not been good. So chalk me up there. Chicago, Dallas, Seattle. Moving on to Sunday, which is it's got its moments there too, but probably the one that really stands out is Patriots at Packers. Super Bowl preview, that's going to be tossed around, although as you said in power rankings, that doesn't mean much in a single elimination game. But do you think the Packers get it done against the Patriots? Do you think the home field advantage tips it in favor of them?
I do, just because the Packers look so unbeatable at home. I mean, the Patriots have been playing out of their minds. This is our 4th straight game against a division leader. I mean, they've had a tough schedule. And I guess you cook the books a little bit because the Lions were the division leader last week. The Packers are this week. But the Patriots have just rolled through these good teams, the Colts, the Broncos, the Lions, that it's hard to pick against the Patriots. But I think the Packers get it done. But that is such a fun game. It could be, the losing team has 35 points.
Yeah, this is the kind of game where, exactly, if the Patriots can come through and win this one, and even worse, win it convincingly, worse for the Packers, then you've got the Patriots at straight up at number 1 there, without a doubt, and it's a battle for number 2 and a distant number 2. But the Packers can be about the only team right now that can hang with the Patriots.
Yeah, if the Packers go, I know I already starting to think ahead. If the Patriots win, they're obviously going to be number 1 in the power rankings. But if the Packers win by 3. I still think the Patriots are the better team, but if the Packers win by 14, are we then talking about, the Packers are the best team in football right now and they've been sneaking up on us? It's just an interesting thing. And you know what? It's one of those things where the Packers aren't even guaranteed to have home field in the playoffs. I mean, the Cardinals still a game ahead of them. They have tiebreaker advantages. So the Packers almost have to win out to get home field throughout the playoffs.
Yeah. When I saw this game on the schedule, I was actually reminded of the game in 1996 when the Broncos came in late in the season. Do you remember this game?
Oh, very well. They clinched the NFC Central that day. Yeah.
Yeah, the Broncos were 12-1. But do you remember who was the quarterback for the Broncos that
Musgrave.
day?
Bill Musgrave.
12 of 22 for 101 yards. Actually didn't throw any interceptions, which is kind of amazing. That was a 41-6 Green Bay Packers victory. Now, obviously, these Patriots are probably a lot better than a Bill Musgrave-led Broncos team. But for some reason, I think the Packers are just going to come up and have a statement game. I think the Patriots have been playing so well. I don't think it can continue the entire time. So I'm looking at this. I'm thinking Packers by maybe 2 touchdowns.
And there's another, I'm actually going out to Kansas City for this Broncos-Chiefs game, which is going to get, with the Thanksgiving game, with the Packers-Patriots, and with the Chiefs' loss. Might get lost in the shuffle a little bit, but it might be for the AFC West still. I don't know that we can just give the Broncos a division yet.
Yeah, that game benefits from being a Sunday night game, but you're right. I think that if it were in the midst of everything else, it would be lost.
So we've got that sad news about Eric Berry might possibly have lymphoma. He's out for the season. Obviously, that's a blow on field to the Chiefs, but I wonder if this is like the sort of thing where it's going to be an Arrowhead, it's national audience, and I kind of wonder if the Chiefs just pull together and win for their teammates. Just one of those real emotional games, and the Chiefs really do need it. I mean, after blowing it to the Raiders Thursday night, we talked about it last podcast, but man, they need this one in the worst way.
Let's be honest, the Broncos don't look like the Broncos of week 5, 6, whatever. They just, I watched that game against Miami and just kept thinking, like, this isn't a great football team. They're good. They're not bad. But until fourth quarter, I thought the Miami Dolphins were going to come into Denver and beat them. They were up by 11.
What has happened to the Broncos? What can you pinpoint anything that's going on?
I don't know. I mean, Manning has been off. Nobody really wants to talk about that, but Manning has been off and he's 38 years old. Maybe it's possible he's slipping a little bit. I don't know. But, and then you lose guys. You lose Julius Thomas. It hurts. It does. They've had some problems on the offensive line. They've had some running back issues, even though C.J. Anderson played great against Miami. They just don't have the depth there. Their defense hasn't been the same. So there's a bunch of it's just a bunch of things all at once. And I just, you watch that team play and you watch the Patriots play, and they're just on 2 different worlds right now. The Broncos, as constituted right now, are not going to beat the New England Patriots. It could change, but the Broncos need this game as much as the Chiefs at this point.
Yeah, I agree. It's amazing to think that we were at one point we were like, oh man, too bad the Denver lost to Seattle because they could have gone 16-0. But
they looked that way. Whatever game I can't remember what game that was. Maybe it was the San Diego game, but they just looked tremendous. I mean, they look like the Patriots do now, where it's just like, wow, how's anybody going to beat these guys? And it's just totally changed. I mean, they were in serious danger on Sunday when they were down going into the fourth quarter of losing 3 out of 4. And one of those against the Rams who aren't very good. So it's going to be interesting. It's one of these like, okay, one of these teams is going to kind of make a statement on Sunday night. And let's say, if the Broncos lose, all of a sudden we're talking about can this team really do it? Is the Peyton Manning era in Denver just going to end without a Super Bowl championship? Because I don't know. They can't go into Kansas City and win, or am I picking them to go into Foxborough and win? Probably not.
You realize that when we get to the end of the season, we're going to look back, and week 1 is going to seem like 3 years ago. Right. Denver's great. San Francisco's headed to the Super Bowl, and we're going to be just completely off.
Always are. That's what the beauty of the NFL just changes. It's so dramatic. The Saints have lost 3 at home in a row. Like, what can we count on anymore?
So we've got a great Thursday slate. We've got a great Sunday afternoon game, great Sunday night game. But the rest of the week is like,
yeah.
Browns and Bills is sort of interesting, but you have that. But Panthers at Vikings, Titans at Texans,
the Chargers,
Redskins at Colts. No, it's the rest of it like leaves us talking ourselves into Browns Bills as a good game. Giants at Jaguars, Saints at Steelers, Raiders at Rams, Cardinals at Falcons.
That's what happens when you have a bunch of great games in there. Is that all the other teams have to play each other, and they become that much easier to ignore.
So the real story of the week, though, is Kevin's still alive in his survivor pool.
Yay.
Now, I would like to know, what if you decided...
Thank you to the Chicago Bears, yeah.
The Chicago Bears, you were really, really upset in the first half, but they came out. They came through for you. So who are the picks? Because now you got to go to 2, right?
Now I have to pick 2, because we have more than 50 people left.
Got to pick two.
So I have to go with the Rams over the Raiders, and I feel pretty good about that because the Rams have been pretty good at home. The Raiders are probably content with that victory over the Chiefs, so I feel pretty good about that one.
As you should.
Rams quarterback situation accepted. And then I have to go with the Texans over the Titans, I think. And that I'm a little Titans. I think they could be frisky enough to win that game.
They are. They're feisty, man. Zach Mettenberger's a pretty good quarterback. I think he's done some things. You realize, by the way, Kevin, that you are talking about picking two teams with a combined 11-18 record to survive for you after getting all the way to the end of November.
This is what happens in Week 13 in Survivor pools, and especially this year, where the people who are left are the people who relied on the big wigs early: the Patriots, the Broncos, the Colts. Got a win out of the Saints, thank God. Win out of the Bears, win out of Cleveland. But yeah, my other option is to go Bengals over the Buccaneers in Tampa. That presents some problems because the Bengals have looked good, but it's their third straight game in a row. So who knows what happens coming out. I may switch on that if Lovey continues to stick with Josh McCown.
I don't get that, by the way. But anyway, yes, it's I know if anybody listening has been this deep in a Survivor pool, you know how stressful that can get. It doesn't become fun anymore. It becomes pretty stressful.
Well, as you said, just be comforted in the fact that no matter what you pick, you'll screw it up. So, Godspeed, Kevin Kaduk.
Yes, the Rams and the Texans, baby. You can't go wrong. There's no way that can fail.
The only person outside of those markets actually watching that game.
All right, that's probably not true because there's probably
some fantasy
football
issues. Yes, exactly.
Yeah. All right, let's wrap this up. It's Thanksgiving week. Let's get on to planning our meals, our Turkey Day football games, our turkey trots, all that stuff. Here at Shutdown Corner Podcast, we wish all of you a very happy Thanksgiving. We are so thankful that you tune in and tell all your friends about us. You guys really are great. And we will be back on next Tuesday to talk about the week that was, talk about the Patriots, Packers, who looks like the top dog in the NFL. I am Kevin Kaduk, Frank Schwab, and Jay Busbee. Have a great week, everybody.